So continuing from our previous presentation, we're taking a look here at the retail value chain. And so we're looking at this idea that in a retail value chain, there's all of these players or actors that are involved with that retail value chain. And they may not necessarily be in sequence, but you have vendors that are supplying raw material. You have people that are planning or more or less designing the product. You have people that merchandise what's going to be sold and how it's going to be sold. You have people that are responsible for picking the vendors or the suppliers and buying the materials. You have people that are responsible for storing and warehousing and moving those particular products. And then you have also the channels of which those products will end up being sold so they can finally reach the final customers. So in each of these areas, we can see different types of analysis strategies that will support the entire retail value chain. So vendors, you might do some supply chain management analysis on vendors to see how they could work. And that would usually go, in my mind at least, in combination with some warehouse and logistics as well. Okay, because we could be looking at reducing transportation costs, on-time product availability, et cetera, et cetera. And notice here there's a little bit of inventory requirements as well. So also merchandising, we're looking at target customers, promotions, these kinds of things. So you can look through this example. It's in the textbook as well as on this slide. You can kind of get an idea about the different types of analytics examples that could be involved into the retail value chain. So also, as you go through your textbook, you can start to see some basic, each of these areas where the analytics can be applied, what type of business question could be asked. So for example, which products have a high demand, and what value it means to a specific section of the business. So here, if we want to do some inventory optimization, we want to know which products have a high demand, so that way we can forecast the consumption of fast-moving products. You know, in manufacturing, we always had the mindset that you can lose money two ways. You can lose money by not having the product available that your customers want. So that means having a high demand but no inventory. Or another way that you can lose money is that you have a high inventory of items that nobody wants. So you've produced a lot of product that you cannot sell. So this comes up to the second business question of what products are slow or obsolete. So basically perform fast inventory turnover of slow moving products. So this could be another idea about that inventory optimization. So you can go through this example in the textbook. It's table 1.1. And there's some more examples there. I also want to point out this idea about market basket analysis. You'll always hear the story about beer and diapers, and I'll just talk about it briefly. The idea about a market basket analysis is what products should you combine to create a bundle offer. So one example might be that if you're selling peanut butter, you might also want to bundle it with jelly. But there was an analysis done about convenience stores at one point in time. And the idea was that people would start to see that beer and diapers were sold together. And the reason for that is because a lot of times on a weekend or a day, time of day when people were getting off of work, the spouse of one would call the other, their significant other, and say, hey, look, we have a baby and we're running out of diapers. So that significant other would go to the convenience store, get some diapers, and on the way there, they would grab a 6-pack of beer on the way home. And over time, what they started seeing is that when diapers would sell, so would beer. So convenience stores started putting beer and diapers together in the same place, so that way it would help customers, get to the store a little faster. So that's just a basic market basket analysis. So another topic that especially comes into conversation with data analytics and analytics overall is the idea of big data. So, a lot of people, is it just big? Well, yeah, of course, it is big data. By the way, there's a lot of scientists that have been analyzing big data for decades, especially when you start taking a look at the super collider in Europe. The types of data they've been dealing with, or the size of the data they've been dealing with, has been huge for some time. But nowadays, it's starting to become a little bit more, I guess, more usable from a business standpoint. And people look at data or big data in terms of large volume, which means that there's a huge amount of it. And they're talking about terabytes, and I think that we're even getting larger than terabytes nowadays, that is coming at them that they need to process. Also, it's coming at them quickly. So large amounts or terabytes of data coming in milliseconds at a time. Also, it has a large variety. So we're talking about text, videos, numbers, which would be structured, and also other types of unstructured, might be something like documents. And then now there's this new idea, which is typically mentioned in some areas about veracity, where it's unknown what type of data it might be, and there might be some incomplete data. It might not be well described. It might be late, and it might arrive at certain times. So all of these things come into play. They create these 4 V's of big data. But all of these combined in one aspect creates that whole idea of big data analytics, and how do we process that? We'll talk more about big data in Chapter 7. So one thing to know, and I'm going to probably talk about this quickly, but one of the things to know is when you're looking at performing some kind of analytics in a business, there is more than one component of the ecosystem that you need to know about. A lot of you may end up working in an organization where you'll be supporting users a lot, but you'll also need application developers as well. You might need people to provide you certifications. There might be companies like SAS or SPSS or others that have some kind of influence in the industry, and there's policymakers. Like a good example of policy might be that if you're doing any kind of data collection in the United States, that data needs to stay in the United States. For example, you can't be collecting data from consumers in the US and store it in Europe. So that's some kind of stuff. So there's other types of aspects of that ecosystem. And the most important thing to look at when you look at analytics is all the different types of roles, and also job opportunities. When you look for graduation, what kind of job opportunities there are. Understanding this landscape is really an important part of the whole ecosystem. So there's the infrastructure providers for data generation, management, data warehouses, middleware providers, etc. And we're going to touch upon each of these as we move forward. But the most important thing to look at the perspective of data analytics is that you get educated on it and always stay educated. When you work in a technology type field, it's critical that you stay educated in those areas. So you might be looking at certificates or master's programs, or et cetera, offered by a multitude of departments in academics in order to be able to grow your business analytics skills. All right, so that's really just the end of our first chapter. If there's any questions or comments that you have, feel free to email me. Thank you.